Hey guys, I'm Pehmol, currently the healing officer in Method. Sko recently did a video where he showed you guys his point of view from Gul'dan on our first kill, and a lot of you requested that I do the same, so I'm doing it now. Here we are. Unfortunately, I don't have the first roughly minute of the fight recorded, so I'm just gonna talk you through it really quick, what happens. As we pull the boss, normal bonds go out. We soak those in melee using Gossi's link. They don't really do much damage. Then the big ad spawns. You don't see it because it's dead already. It doesn't really do much. It just melees the tank and does a pushback that does really minuscule damage to the raid. Then we get a liquid hellfire and some ice. We use Kina's wings and Gossi's AG on that. Really quick before we start, I want to go through my talents just so you guys know what I'm playing with. I'm playing with Bestow Faith, Rule of Law, and in the CC role it actually matters for once, since there are ads in last phase that needs to be CC'd. So I'm playing Repentance. I'm playing with Aura of Mercy and Divine Purpose. I'm playing Divine Purpose because it's a very long fight, so mana is really tight. That's the first reason. The second reason is that there's a lot of movement, especially in phase 2. While there's still a lot of healing requirements, so you can't really afford to just run and do nothing, or Light of the Martin for a long time. We had two paladins, as you can tell, healing paladins, me and Kina, so I'm playing with Judgment of Light. I had a tiny bit more intellect, and I'm playing with Beacon of Faith. We discussed who should play with if we should play Beacon of Faith or Lightbringer really shortly, but as we got our tactic ready for phase 2, where the rogues are soaking the well on their own, Beacon of Faith pulls ahead by miles, even though Sko is solo tanking their Fell Scythe. Anyway, as I said, we're picking off after the first empowered bonds. Sko is soloing all these Fell Scythes, which means he's taking a big hit whenever the boss reaches full energy. So I'm using my sack on him on this. For this unempowered Liquid Hellfire, I'm using my wings and my Aura Mastery, because I get pretty lucky with Light of Dawn procs. And I get these bonds. I use my freedom on me to get rid of the slow, and Gossi runs out with his healing bubble, and we just break them. You see the melee, or the range, starting to assemble in the top left corner to bait the Hellfire. The Hellfire doesn't actually go on healers, so you're free to run around wherever you want to. During this, I'll mostly just be sticking to melee, both for mastery on the tank and just to Light of Dawn the melee. It has fall off damage, the meteor, so the further away you are, the better, really. During this phase, you will see a lot of holy lighting over Flash of Light, since there's not that much of a healing requirement, and it's mostly about preserving mana for the later phases where you need a lot of healing output. The second Hellfire goes out, and you can see there's still an eye alive in the top left, which is really close to killing off a few people. But we power through it, and Gossi's mastery gets to kick in a little bit. Other than that, you should see me running back and forth from melee to DPS every now and again. Again, mostly to preserve mana. Having the teeny tiny extra DPS is good as well, but it's not the primary reason why I'm doing it. Bonds go out again. You will see Just Wait teleporting in with his monk teleport every time, which is why the melee dipped to like 85% or something, I don't really know. On these next bonds is where I'm using my healing bubble. Kina is ready as a backup in case I get the bonds that go out just before. And you will see Skull resetting on me, since the Fell Scythe is fire damage, which means that if you use the bubble in melee, primarily used to cover the melee, since we, with our tactic, had a bubble left over. But Skull can use it as an opportunity to reset without using a cooldown. As you can see it, he's running on top of me here. Boop. And some of the absorb remains for the melee. In terms of your priority targets from a healing perspective, you want to make sure that people who are targeted by the eye are healed enough to stay safe. But be wary that you don't spend too much mana keeping them alive, because mana is really tight in this phase, at least from my perspective. The boss pushes at around 50%, so there's not really much going on in the end towards the fight. You can see we helped out Soak, or the other raiders helped out Soak, and I just go back in to do a few globals with DPS. Spread out again before the big eye. You can see I Judgment the eye because it's the highest priority target. So my Judgment and light stacks are more likely to get consumed if I put them on the eye. And then we exit the phase, and I'm at about 85 to 90% mana, which is really good, because this is where it starts to hurt. Like I said in the beginning of the video, we have the rogues soaked well and taking 9 stacks each. It caps out at 9 stacks. So we assigned each Holy Paladin to primarily focus on the rogues. So you'll see me swapping my beacon onto Perfecto, called Worst Player. You see there is the red dot on the right frames. The well debuff in itself takes for a lot of damage, and once they get to 9 stacks, they start taking a lot of damage, so they need a lot of focus on them all the time. So Kina is in charge primarily again, because sometimes you can see like I'm running now. Calling for the other healers to help me out with Perfecto, making sure he's safe. So I had my beacon on Skull and Perfecto, and Kina kept his on Just Wait and Iliayo. So we had a rogue and a tank each. This first harvest, we use the remainder of Kina's wings, Gossi's Tide and my Aura Mastery. We rotate the darknesses as well, just to get them in case they proc. Ignore my character pane popping up quickly. I have my mic mute button bound to the same as my character pane. In terms of wings, they're best used in my opinion on the eyes, since that's primarily spot healing. So you'll see this eye spawning soon is where I use my wings. And focusing again on the rogues and people with the heal absorb or the eye debuff. I want to touch quickly on Light of the Martyr, which generally is a spell that you don't want to cast too much, but sometimes you're left with no option, so you'll see me casting it more than normally in this fight, especially if I'm running from the winds or what it might be, to keep the rogues alive, because sometimes they do dip quite a lot, and you're not likely to take damage unexpectedly. You can mostly know when you're gonna take damage. So while it is a bad spell to use, if you're left with no other choice, use it to keep the raid stable. Rule of Law is really vital as well in my opinion in this fight. It's a very good talent on many fights, but especially effective on this because there's so much spot healing going on, and at least with our tactic you're spread throughout basically the entire room. So having extra range in your spells whenever you need them is really, really good. You'll see me focusing a lot on Perfecto here, even though a few of the hunters are dropping, and I switch off and I choose to use my land hands just to keep him safe. Again, during these high movement phases, you will see some Light of Dawn action going out. You can see my unit frame dipping sometimes when I use it. For these harvests, we use raid cooldowns on those, and like I said, the wings are really good for the eyes, so that's where we rotated Kina and my wings. We'll see me trying to maximize my movement here and using my wings now, even though my wings aren't fully effective. We don't need them until last phase, and we figured out that if I use them at this point, you can see Chris is channeling his mana potion as well. There's not much going on here, but I may as well use them just to clear the debuffs, and they will be ready when we need them in last phase. This is where Keelan sits down and channels as well. You can see the debuff on the red frames. So I focus extra on both the rogues here, and I spend a lot of mana with my Flash of Light. At this point you will see Scribe is stepping in the well as well, and Just Wait. You can see Just Wait has 9 stacks as well, because we don't want to have souls remaining for the last harvest, the 4th harvest. On this eye we use the Tide and my AM. We use that primarily because we're moving, so people tended to overlap by accident, and it's hard for healers to heal obviously while running. We pop Lust at this point because we want to push the boss. And this is where both Revile and Nogga, by accident, I think one of them got aggro because Skull was running through the well. If you didn't know, the well, you drop aggro if you're running through the well. I think they stood on top of each other, so the fell scythe hit them and killed them, unfortunately. But we had 2 reses, so we just 3 even. So we used 2 reses and keep going. As the boss dies, you'll see the last die come out, and I thought it would die before it got to tick. But I'm standing close to melee and I tick on the melee a few times, unfortunately, and then it dies off. As the boss comes down, this is where I usually would channel, but we kind of push the boss a little bit later than sometimes. So I choose to delay my channel until after these parasitic wounds go out. In this phase, the priority targets are the parasitic wound targets and Skull. Whenever Skull gets the healing absorb, the debuff he has right now, you need to be really quick on getting it off him, off your tank. You will see me swapping my beacon onto Coning because he takes the shield and he's soaking the Night Orb's cast. So you'll see as soon as the Night Orb starts casting in, Coning is going to take quite a lot of damage. I use my wings here because the parasitic wounds overlap with the flame crash, so it's a pretty dangerous overlap. This ad spawns and just gets to smack Nogga once in the face before just wait picks it up. I use my sack on Skull here because he's about to get the healing absorb, and as you can see, it's a pretty good timing from Skull's point of view because there's a lot of stuff going on in the raid, and Skull generally just chain cooldowns here because he's really close to dying, but we get the absorb off him just as I get stunned. At this point, the bubble spawns that need to go in order to survive, and I stay out until as late as I dare because mana you don't regenerate mana when you're inside the bubble. If you're feeling cheeky, you can stay out and get an extra second of mana regeneration. I get the parasitic wounds at this point, so I use my DP and run into melee. It's really important that you place these close to each other so the melee get a chance to CC them and kill them off quickly. Keena's lay on hands goes out on Skull there. That's pretty good. So yeah, I stopped my cast because Skull has the initial absorb that you can't heal through, and as soon as the rogues picked it up, I go back to focusing on members of the raid. We use a Tide and an AM here because there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time, as you can see, just to get the raid stable. My flask actually runs out and I have a weaker, luckily. I just reflask. This point is pretty dodgy as well. We actually have a death and Just Wait is very close to dying. And we need to charge these essences, and this is where the raid goes dodgy again, and I'm really close to not making it in the bubble. Kazu dies at this point, which is on purpose actually. It's to buff Red's releases damage. Red Paladins gain a buff whenever some of their friends die in the raid. And this is where all the healers are basically just DPSing. There's very close to nothing going on. You can see the first ad top left corner of the screen right now is CC'd. I'm on the third ad that needs to be CC'd. And there's a very long time here where nothing is really happening. So you'll see us, we need to keep the parasitic wound targets alive. And other than that, the tank needs to be kept top. The score is very close to dying again, but we pull through. Kazu dies again to keep Narcoles' buff alive. The second ad has spawned and it's being CC'd. And we just keep pushing some boss damage here. This part of the fight is kind of boring from a healing perspective. There's not really much going on. the wounds need to be kept alive along with the tank, and that's pretty much it. My ads once, the one on 86cc, so I use my repentance on it, proc my Cephas as well, and I go back to DPSing the boss. In the end here I use my wings, and Gossi dies to the Chaos Seed along with the what's it called? Flame Crash, sorry. And then we kill the boss pretty much afterwards. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you want to do more of this in the future. Thanks for watching.